I gave up.
Mm-hmm.
Lieutenant colonels in the Army, if you're in DC, you make about 180,000 a year.
Yeah.
Like you give up.
Yeah.
Then when you retire and you make your retirement pay, if you're a GS 14 or 15 with the federal government, that's also about 150, 140, 50, 60,000. So not only was I here retirement and I'm here with GS and I say, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm resigning from this job at the White House's National Security Council as the Human Capital Director and I'm going home.
Mm-hmm.
Now I didn't make this decision by myself because if it was a decision I would make, I would still be there. What happened is something that I was laying on the couch at the White House because we had to sleep at the White House on inauguration night, pre-inauguration. We had to stay there because security wouldn't let you come in. I couldn't get to work if I would have came in on inauguration day.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to sleep there. And then something says it's time to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, can we wait? And I preached my first sermon on the cost of discipleship. But so then by the third day, I wake up and I go to the bathroom, and the next thing I know is I'm getting up off the floor. I pass out.
Wow.
I get up, I sit down, and I pass out again.
Mm-hmm.
I go to the emergency room, they run all these tests, and they say they can't find anything wrong. And I said, oh, I know what's wrong. It's time to go home.
So what I will say is that what I think is unique about us talking about the internet, I used to contract with Microsoft.
Oh,
I
wow.
joke with my mother, meaning I promise you every time I had a big presentation with Microsoft, about 70 people on the team, the internet just didn't work right. If my contract ended, I promise you it probably had something to do with access, the internet.
That challenge itself, the access to internet for rural, it was really exposed during COVID, but it's something that even when I worked on Capitol Hill in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, it's something that was a focus area for the member that I worked for, Congressman Idaho. There was always a focus on rural broadband, and I haven't studied the issue recently, but I don't know where the challenge is at today. But I do know that we still have challenges in rural. It's a lag behind in all of these things that have pushed society forward that we're trying to catch up.
That's right. My name is Forte, also known as Instructor Forte, and welcome to the Forte Effect, where technology, creativity, and the future of work meet. And today, he said, call me Jody. We have in the lab Jody. He comes by way of a little small town, but I think they got some big dreams and he's done some wonderful stuff. So we'll get a little bit into it a little bit further on. But hey, Jody, thanks for stopping by.
It's good. It's good to be with you today. On the
Uh,
Forte Effect, I've seen from afar, like I've mentioned before, and I'm just honored to have the opportunity to sit with you today. Yeah.
all right. So as we talk to Jody today, we are going to go inside what power looks like. The military, Capitol Hill, navigating through the White House. So, Jody, you've operated in Iraq, Congress, the White House. Where did you feel the most pressure to lead and why?
I think that being a young officer in the military, being deployed to Iraq and being responsible for 15,000 service members across Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, we even had contractors, that was when I felt the most pressure, not because I didn't feel like I was experienced. It was because in the Army, all leadership, how people look at you is based on your rank. And and being a young officer in the Army in a position that was three grades higher, major lieutenant colonel position, is that I was in meetings with folks and it would be not being respected because I wasn't a major or lieutenant colonel, but then having expectations to lead a group of human resources professionals across the joint forces and provide those human resources services and operations for 15,000 service members. So I think that was where I would have felt the most pressure in leadership.
That was a lot of soldiers that you were actually responsible for.
To answer the question, yeah, I think that I was raised Baptist, but I'm more part of a larger church now. is I just think that that anytime that you go through something, that there's a background that's associated with where you're at if it's a challenge. So playing basketball in high school and what I learned from playing basketball was extremely, extremely integral to leadership, not leadership outside of civilian life and joining the military. So the things that I would have needed to learn or gain from being a leader on the basketball court kind of transitioned over to sharpening and honing those skills. I think that everybody's born with an innate set of skills and abilities. And then there's certain experiences in life that can polish up those things that we already have. I don't, there's always this competing dialogue between whether leaders are born or if they're made. And I think it's a little bit of both. I think that you're born with certain gifts and then you can be polished. Those gifts can be polished in a way that leads to something productive. And also, if you're in the wrong places and wrong spaces, those skills and attributes can also be smothered. But yeah, I think it comes back to what I learned from being, well, I wouldn't call myself a star athlete, but from playing basketball in high school.
Hmm. Yeah, and actually, if you look at a lot of people, if you look at research across very large companies, CEO, Fortune 500, 100, whatever you want to call it, the majority of those people, particularly as a woman, they were actually an athlete in school. So people kind of undermine the connection of being an athlete and how it helps your leadership, your discipline. I love reading stories about athletes. I love watching movies about them because the grit, the determination, the sacrifice, it just it challenges you in so many different ways. And as you said that, it's probably some other people that I want to introduce you to even more because they have some platforms that kind of align with your background and then also the sports side of it.
Yeah.
So you're from Carrollton, Alabama. We say that population right now is not even 1,000 people. By way of what is the name of your community?
Big
Big
Creek.
Big
Big
Creek.
Creek. Now,
Okay.
I say it's the hometown of Patrick Plott and Courtney
Okay.
Taylor.
Town of Patrick Plott, Courtney Taylor. Shouts out to those guys. And so how do you think growing up there shaped you to be the way that you lead?
Yeah,
Carrollton, Big Creek, how did that shape you?
I think that there's a certain mindset. Like, I always wanted to be from the city. Like, I always, when I was young, I was like, I want to be from the city. But then as I look at life in hindsight, what I actually value most about a small town is that I always go back to what my grandmother raised me.
Mm-hmm.
And with my grandmother raising me, there I always go back to these three core attributes that when people talk across any different space, regardless of where you're at, I say that it's just here, like, I mean, you can speak to people here and they'll speak back, right? And so, like, I remember going to DC for the first time when I was in aid for a general. And the first thing is like, well, I need to get a rental car. And he's like, what are you talking about? We don't need a rental car. And I'm like, man, anything you do in the country, you need a car, right?
Right.
So just the idea of not needing a car is something that I didn't know about. But then being in that, being from rural, it was you treat people the way that my mom said, you treat people the way that you want to be treated. And so then that's just become, you just treat people right because it's right to treat people right. There's also that part of my mom, but also my Uncle Harold Billups, is that I learned to work hard. It's just something about being from the country that's just instilled in you that you work hard. Like even we talk campaign now, it's like, man, people see you out and they see you working. I said, yeah, because I've just always watched my mother work hard in a clothing factory. When she made up to $6 or $7 an hour, they sold the company. They all went back down to almost minimum wage again. And she had two kids, me and my brother. And so and it's just to work hard. And then the other one that my mom taught me in the South, if you want to do anything in the South, you know that the church is involved in it. And my mom just taught me to have faith. And not just, I mean, not just because she went to church, because I watched my mom have to demonstrate that when we went through certain challenges in our life that has to do with grief and loss. And so those are the three attributes that it, regardless of where I go, regardless of how many degrees I have and all of that stuff, it really just comes back to those three things. You treat people right because it's right to treat people right, the golden rule. but
Yeah.
then it's to work hard and it's to have faith. Yeah.
So you mentioned being an athlete in school. Now, I wonder, before the military, what was your original vision for your life and career?
So before, military, it was I took a visit because my aunt lived in San Antonio and I became a San Antonio Spurs fan. And not only just a Spurs fan, I was a David Robinson fan. Before I even knew about the character of David Robinson, the admiral that was Navy, I wanted to be like David Robinson. Like I wore number 50 in high school. I always wore 50.
Oh wow. And I think I just saw him at a game the other day. San Antonio Spurs. I mean, who doesn't know David Robinson? And when
Yeah,
you said that about that was the shot that you wanted to actually shoot, I want to make sure that I introduce you to a young man that is a former student of mine, and he has some of his work. What happens for an athlete when the ball goes flat, or you think
yeah,
this is how your career will be, and this is what you actually end up kind of doing into kind of looking at your transition.
yeah.
So so since we didn't go play professional basketball.
So what happened was I did play basketball. A significant event happened in my life when my
Mm-hmm.
brother passed away. And I was a 10th grader. My brother was a senior. And then I said, I got to do something. And it was, I got to have a plan. I got to have a plan. And when I looked around and I looked up and I looked down, it was like, well, it's basketball. And I got more serious about basketball. And I was all-state basketball player in high school. I go to all the camps. And then I had the opportunity to play basketball at the University of West Alabama. Now, and when I got to West Alabama, I realized that all of these athletes that are in college are as good or better than me. Most of them were better. And not only that, I was 6'5" or 6'6" or whatever it was, but I was really 6'4". And the skill set that I had for basketball for college transitioned to a small school. And I was way out of position. I was not a great shooter. I wasn't a great dribbler, so I wasn't a guard. And so, but the whole point though, just like I told a teenager, a student from Ellisville yesterday, he's a senior and he has some challenges. I said, but you made it. Like the whole purpose of college is to graduate. And so just
Mm-hmm.
like him, we went through everything he had gone through it up to that point and he's 17. It's but you made it. Like out of all of what you've been through, but you made it. And so
Yeah.
out of all of the ups and downs, like my best friend, we were both 19 when James Sullivan passed away. And
Mm-hmm.
then it was like I really, really got to get serious about college and graduate. And then basketball didn't work out, but I graduated on time. And so then graduating on time, I ended up with my friend Derek Childs. People weren't getting their titles back with Title Max. We were taking people's titles and their cars with Title Max.
Right.
And I said, I just can't do this. I said, I just can't do it. Like I would say, it wasn't just people that didn't have money. It
Yeah.
was people that didn't know how to manage money. It's a combination of both. People that didn't have money, but people that couldn't manage money. It would be doctors, it would be teachers. My mom had served in the military. My aunt had served, was retired Air Force. My mom had served a few years in the Army. And I went to a recruiter, and the recruiter was like, you can do this James Bond stuff. And I was like, James Bond stuff. And so I went to my aunt and I said, hey, I'm thinking about joining. I'm tired of taking people's titles and I'm thinking about joining. And then she's like, oh, that's a good job. And the hook and the took. They were going to pay back my student loans that I didn't need anyway, but I got them anyway. Pay back my student loans. And I only had to do it for 3 years. And I was gaining experience as an intelligence analyst. It was during the surge. This is 2004, during our surge into Iraq, and the Army needed a whole bunch of intelligence analysts. So we were getting $20,000 signing bonuses, and paying off student loans and getting experience at the same time.
Wow.
And I was gonna get out of taking people's title back with Title Max. And so nothing against people that do that because I understand that that's a profession, there's a business model. But my heart, this will probably be a strain. My love for people just would not let me take people's titles. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when I would tell people that you can like it would be this is my bottom line for my store when I tell you to take your title somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And by the heart that I had, just like I'm making keys and eventually I'm gonna take somebody's car. And I just said, I'm joining the military.
Wow.
And I initially had planned to do it for 3 years.
Mm.
And again, the first 3 years it was train up. The way that this worked. Which branch were you in?
Army.
Yeah, so it back then it was train up, deploy, reset, train up, deploy, take back. It was like doom, 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 doom. And so I was getting there when they were sending us to units that were getting ready to deploy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, I learned so much. So then we deploy and we're deployed. I'm with the driver, with the brigade commander's driver. This is how close those relationships. So I'm with the driver, and based on my job as an intel analyst, I would brief the commander every every morning because I worked all night. I was on a night shift. I
Okay.
would brief the commander, and so my my chew, the tent, the guy that I lived with, that we had these little tin things. People don't know what a chew is. It's like a tin container, and my roommate was the colonel that's in charge of my unit, probably 6,000 soldiers, maybe
Yeah.
7,000. The per- the colonel that was in charge, the driver, we were stayed in the same shoe. So he's like, hey, the commander wants to see you because you demonstrate these attributes, and he wants to talk to you about becoming an officer. And I said, and so when I went and talked to him, I said, you know what? I'm I'm about to get married, and I only was going to do it for 3 years, and you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. And so I talked to my mom, and my mom said, very, very, very subtle. That's how she is. She doesn't tell you exactly what to do. She said, I don't know what you're gonna come home for.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that I re-enlisted, deployed, and as soon as I re-enlisted, I also dropped my packet to go to officer candidate school to become an officer.
Oh wow. That that I mean you for those that might be listening, Jody referenced when he was in the 10th grade, his brother passed and he was in the 12th grade. So I was actually his brother's classmate. Spoiler alert for those that might be listening. I actually did go to a different high school in my 12th grade year, but it's all love. Sometimes people say, how did I didn't even know they don't know all of this story. They forget. But
Yeah,
I always tell the truth about my roots and all the different places that I've actually been. And aside from you talking about the military, I the biggest piece that jumped out from me, even with the feedback your mom gives, how she gives that subtle direction, is turning that pain into purpose. And
yeah.
this is all from a guy over 6 feet coming from a little small town.
But though, to your point, there's
Mm-hmm.
just something innate within us to discover what are we here for. And I was talking to some folks at T-Mobile earlier today. I would say there's a huge, huge percentage of people that I call it going without knowing, but they're living. It seems good, but they don't. But they there's some emptiness because they're not operating in purpose. And purpose, it's a book that I haven't written yet. But the pathway to purpose is your lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
Your lived experience develops a passion for something or some things. You just develop a passion. And based on that passion, now you have two of the three um, X and Y and Z equals P.
Yeah.
Is that now the next one that you need to have is gifts. And gifts is something that you have to discover what those are. But like if you look in your DNA, you will like mine, I just know exactly what I mean, it took a while, but like my dad had it. Like and like people say you're just like your dad. It's like, yeah, it's a charisma that has to do with like I don't teach myself to work with my hands, but like it's very when you're trying to compel people to do what's right because it's right to do what's right, you need to have a certain skill set. The
Yes.
same ones that politicians use, the same ones that lawyers use, the same ones that actors and comedians use, the same ones that are artists use. It's the same one that we use when we're compelling people to do what's right because it's right to do what's right. And in my profession as a minister, it will be to do what's right because it's right to love people.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm passionate about this one thing. When we touch it, it's like there's just something people attract to it because people are always trying to figure out why they're here. And I'm like, no, it's three things. And it's
Yeah.
really simple, but it's also complex because nobody wants to deal with what's in their closet that's their lived experience.
Yeah.
Generally,
So
people don't want to, they don't want to, leave it closed. We don't want to touch it, but it becomes an anchor.
Okay. So just for clarity, go back to those things that you said people, it's not just the passion, it's the gifts or the lived
Yeah,
experience.
yeah,
Let's go back. I want you to repeat that. Just you're the
yeah,
instructor, you're breaking it down
yeah,
so that we
yeah,
can make sure that we have that
yeah,
perfect clip for that,
yeah,
because I'm telling you, somebody's listening right now and they say, I didn't get that note. So I want
yeah,
you to make
yeah,
sure you repeat it for the
yeah.
audience.
Yeah, thank you. So this equals purpose. We all have a lived experience, and that lived experience has to do with disappointments, setbacks, loss, anything that hurt you. It hurt you to help you.
Mhm.
That's your lived experience. Now, what we do with our lived experience, the human side of it says that we're going to treat that human experience with an L, a loss with a loss. So I've lost something, and I'm going to treat that loss with another loss, and I call it a loss squared. Two negatives don't equal a positive.
Right.
Now, in math, that works really well in math, but in life, a L in a L is a double L. So
Yep.
now I'm going to treat that hurt with with the it with whatever it is. That's our lived experience. And now with that lived experience, it we have a passion for something. Again, this is so broad that it takes people directly where they need to go to and not where I want them to go.
Mm-hmm.
Your lived experience gives you a passion for some things or something.
Yep.
And then we have those two because those two are known. We know what our known lived experience is, and we know what we're passionate about.
Yep.
Those things are connected. Then the only thing we have to figure out is in the why is our gifts. So then now if we think it's something, if we think it's whatever we think it is, I told somebody, I said, now start reading these scholarly journals about social work. Don't even apply. Don't even see what the requirements are, and then see what the requirements are. Now start reading the magazines to understand the language and what they're talking about. Start watching YouTube videos. Now what that does though, it either nods and winks at you or it shakes his head.
Yep.
Now if you just look at the requirements to do it, you're gonna always say no. Yeah, I don't want to do. I don't want to take these classes.
Right.
It'll always be no. But now, if it's your passion, you will go through the fire if it's your passion. If it's something just to make money, you're more often than not to just to quit.
Yep.
So those are the three things for purpose. Our lived experience gives us a passion for something. The other plus would be our gifts, and that equals purpose.
Oh wow. You could have been a math teacher, geometry, algebra. You saw for X, Y. I was waiting to get Z, the slope intercept of a line. So hey, I'll run out of paper with you, man. So
Yeah, yeah.
thank you for that. And that's exactly what we need to hear, especially with not those two L's and putting them together. That's a double loss. So as we kind of navigate further through the military and leadership, how do you think your time in combat changed the way you actually make decisions?
So probably before I retired,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be able to answer this question
Okay.
because the army the army trains and instills in you to be a soldier. There's a certain element that says that we want to treat people with compassion and we're people organization, but ultimately we're a fighting force. So as a fighting force, it's difficult to be a fighting force and at the same time have have the empathy and compassion for people to be people to have the compassion for people to get help when they have issues.
Yeah.
But if you're hearing, I'll give a caution for those that may watch that may be triggered with PTSD. They give you a few seconds to chime or to pause. Um, there's something that when you hear incoming, 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 and we are trained to put your gear on, and you run to the bunker. And when you're running to the bunker, when it was bombs over Baghdad, it was literally bombs over Baghdad for soldiers that were on FOBs, on bases that were in combat zones. that bombs were dropping and we never knew where they were going to drop at because they were just dropping them. It wasn't just Outkast singing a song, it was real. And
Hmm.
so, incoming, 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 you run to the bunker. And one time I was running to the bunker, and a girl that was probably 15 feet from me, it hit her. And after that experience, I said, I'm not running anymore. And now, before this, back up when I was in my Connex, that's like a 10 container for those that missed it. And I worked at night, so then I would do the reports for the next morning. So if we could, so in a rocket hit one of these 10 things, and probably 20, 30 meters from where I was at. And if it can, you can be asleep and it can hit you. And if you can be awake running to the bunker, the concrete fortified bunker, and you can get hit. The spirit just came over me and said, I'm not running anymore. And I never woke up again when bombs were exploding around me. I just stopped waking up. I can sleep right
Wow.
now on a dime. And so anyway, but what that experience taught me is how precious life is. And now I was just in town and I was having this conversation. How precious every single individual life is. Now you see a string from what happened to my, I didn't mention what happened to my dad. When my brother was 17, I was 15. James Sullivan was 19. 19, Derek Childs just had the flu. This was 2016, 27, just had the flu and passed away before
Mm.
COVID. And now I'm in a combat zone, and the value of life and people as an intel analyst, this is when those religious sets were fighting each other. And I would get all the reports from the Iraqi police station. We had to verify the bodies. So all those bodies that were being verified by people doing things that were really inhumane to other people, I was getting all of those pictures in from the Iraqi police station because we had to verify the bodies. So I learned it was about the value of human life. And the Iraqi that will be cleaning up Saddam's pools, he said, "What is my family supposed to do? If we don't work with the insurgents to drop the bombs when they give us $50, they'll kill us. If we work on the base with you and try to go home, they'll kill us. What do you expect for us to do?"
Right.
They're in a no-win situation. If I don't plant the bomb, they kill us. If I work on the base for you, they kill us. So it was some that were, when we were going, we were riding through Baghdad, dropping out vouchers when we were killing and destroying stuff too. So their confidence in us is, some would just get $50 to watch out to hit the remote for IEDs and killing our
Yeah.
soldiers. Nobody wins in war. The industrial base complex, the business of military industrial base complex, that there's a net loss in war, and the ones that lose the most are the ones that are live on the margins.
Oh wow. That that is a lot that you shared. And although I'm an Army veteran too, I just want to publicly say thank you for your service, because your experience in the military has been 100% different than mine. And I do find it interesting that you said your mother had been in the Air Force.
My mom was in the army and my aunt was in the Air Force.
In the Air Force, okay. As you were making mention of how the Army operates to a certain degree, I remember coming back from basic training because my mother and father were both in the Air Force and retired. And my mother was like, "What are you singing and what are you talking about?" But then the Army is like, blood, blood, blood makes the grass grow green. She's like,
Sergeant.
"What?" Just the humanity piece of it. She got a kick out of it.
Yeah, this could be a plug too for people that are thinking about joining, because it's not all bad, and I'm thankful for you for directing. But the point though is that um, the Army works with the Air Force for a reason. So the
Hmm.
ships take them there, and the airplanes takes us there to wherever these places are for us to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I guess the challenge would be that based on what those the defending the Constitution of the United States is, it's becoming more and more polarized on
Hmm.
what that even means.
Right.
So when you join, I tell people, when you join, you have to be willing to die for the Constitution of the United States, and you need to take that obligation seriously,
Yeah.
which isn't something that I did. I did it
Right.
because I needed money to pay student loans, and so I'm not pro or against. I'm for giving people options
Yes.
because if you're on the streets and you're involved in activities on the streets,
Yes.
you're better off using that skill set so you can be trained to be disciplined with that skill set to be
Correct.
used to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Now, based on where I was at, based on what I'm called to do, I said I'm an advocate for peace.
Mm-hmm.
And as an advocate for peace, it's good for me to say thank you very much, and for me to shift
Right.
from being a lieutenant colonel to being a retired major in the United States Army.
Oh wow. That's good. And I will say, when I think about you and being able to retire, you went in, you did your 20 years. And I will say, for those that are listening, because I used to actually teach inside a correctional institution for post secondary education,
Mm.
you can take those same 20 years that a guy or girl has done in prison, and it does not equate what 20 years in the military looks like of credible service. So you have to make the choice for yourself and kind of weigh your options in terms of what works best for you and how do you choose to live. So I'm going to throw in a shameless plug. You might as well take those 20 years
Yeah,
and go in the military and
yeah,
have other options when you get
yeah,
out for your family.
yeah.
So
Any
I'm going to
any job.
shamelessly say that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Any
But
job that you want outside, there are those jobs in the military, and so it's I always look at it as where is there opportunity, especially if you're from where I'm from. But then also there's a level of patriotism that
yes.
if you feel patriotic and want to fight for your country, then we pay our taxes to have a force that's designed to support and defend the interest of the United States. All right,
Okay.
I would say to be successful in life that you need to love people, but that it's an authoritarian leader. This is emotional
Hmm.
intelligence where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a leader that's statement and that's about diplomacy. Man,
Hmm.
if your organization is doing this and is at the bottom, you really need a cleanup person, a man or a woman, a man or a woman. You need a cleanup person. Now, like I would say that there's certain skill sets that are needed in certain instances. So, like enlisted before I was an officer, and so what I did is enlisted. I just did whatever people told me to do.
Right.
And as an officer, you're still doing what people tell you to do, but you're given a vision and a goal. And as a leader, you're the person on the ground to execute that vision. So you have more leeway on how it's done. And
Hmm.
so in that space, because I was enlisted, because I just love people, because it's right to love people, I would give people enough space to lead in their own boxes. I didn't necessarily always tell people what to do. I
Hmm.
told them what needed to be done. Right. And so now when you do that, people become vested in whatever it is that you want to do. Um, and so I just say, but now if the building's on fire, like, hey, let's go.
Right. Yeah.
Like if the building's on fire, but more than if I have time on my hand, I'm gonna be real delicate in development because I'm about people leading themselves and not to have to be shown where the water is every time, but to show them, hey, this is how you find out where water is, and that way I don't even have to take you to the water to tell you how to drink. You're
Hmm.
already equipped that when I leave out of this place, that you're able to pick up and keep going.
Right.
Now, the other side to that is people generally, the human instinct is the desire to be first.
Hmm.
This is what Alfred, one of our psychoanalysts, said. It's the desire to be first. Now, if my human instinct is the desire to be first, I'm just going to hold all the information for myself and let you have to come to me to figure out whatever it is that we have to do.
Right.
And I realized that in order to be really, really, really successful in leadership in the military, you can't be a nice guy or gal. I mean, you can. I mean,
Right.
you
Yeah.
can, but it makes it that much harder because the
Right.
longer you stay in, the smaller the pool gets. And I said, man, I'm too much of a nice person. Um, Not that I couldn't say let's go, but I knew that too much of a nice guy, but then there's a piece associated with it. But the core attribute that I feel that people should have in leadership, let me back up. So I was an intel analyst enlisted, and then I became an officer, and I was a human resources officer in the Army. And as human resources, you're the extension of the eyes and ears for the commander. I call it like being an usher at church. You're the
Yeah.
door. You're when before people even get there, talking to people, and when people have issues, they're talking to you. And when it's
Yeah.
time for evaluations, people are talking to you. If they have any kind of issues, they're talking to you. And when it's time to leave, they're talking to you. So I may know more than the commander knows. And so I was the right hand person for my commander. And my commander said in one of my last units, he said, Jody, like we're having these, this is in Germany. He says, Jody, we're having all these, having these soldier issues. And he's like, what should I do? I said, sir, he said, we do a lot of studies. We spend a lot of money on leadership. He said, Jody, what? I said, sir, this is what you do. Get a whiteboard, call all of your commanders in. You get a whiteboard. And on this whiteboard, you write on this whiteboard, soldiers wants leaders to care. 5 words or six or
Hmm.
whatever it is. Soldiers wants leaders to care. And what you do with this is you tell the commander, spend 15 minutes on what this means to you. Not only what it means, how you implement this in your daily activities, but also into your policies in your units.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't just for Army, this isn't just for military, this is for humanity.
Yeah.
People just want to know that somebody cares.
Yep.
People just want somebody to care.
Hmm.
And so they say, Jody, why? I said, man, because I just love people.
Yeah.
And you can't grow it, you can't drink it, you can't really
Hmm.
fake it today.
Yeah.
But people just want people to care.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful what you said, especially about wanting people to care because people always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, yeah.
As we kind of transcribe some of the things that you said for those that might not be as familiar with maybe what that meant on the military side, but if you bring it to civilian structure and maybe you're considering a career in human resources, he made mention of development, delegating. That's when you would kind of get into or how people work in an organization. You would be looking at your Gallup Q12. How engaged is a person in the workplace? Because if a person is engaged, they have high morale, they're more likely to do a better job.
So now I learned about emotional intelligence in the seminary. I didn't learn
Yeah.
this in the army. I learned this
Yeah.
a whole 3 hour course on
Yeah.
emotional intelligence. And I
Yeah.
said, man, and so you have to take the test and you figure out where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And I started going through the seminary. I was like, man, like, wow, I've already been through. And now I'm learning like Sigmund Freud and Alfred Adler and human desires of humanity.
Yeah.
And so now you definitely need those when you're dealing in the human space, especially now when all the things that are happening in this social space that may not be real, but it affects our behaviors.
Yeah.
And so, but the emotional intelligence is something that I recommend that anybody in any position where you're dealing with people take a class on emotional intelligence. I was trying to get the general that's in charge of HR for the Army to make this a requirement for the Army.
Yeah. Right. Good.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
now that we've kind of taken care of some of the development piece, but
yeah.
now that we've taken care of some of the human side, let's get over to maybe some fiscal responsibilities and start looking at money. I think the largest budget I've actually worked with was about 1.2 million.
Wow.
So you've worked and you supported the Army's budget. I don't
Mhm,
know if you remember any of those budget numbers, but you can
mhm.
share some of those with us. But
Yeah,
what's something you think the public gets wrong about how decisions are actually made with the budget?
I think that I'm running the campaign for state senate for District 21, and
Okay.
is what I don't think that people it affects us probably. So these two things probably affects us more, our daily lives more than these are critically important.
Okay.
It's special interest in politics
Mm-hmm.
that the like I just never really knew that you could have put now you can give an unlimited amount of money to a political candidate,
Mm-hmm.
and that shapes how policy decisions are made.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk power has all the power. Alabama Power has the power with the Alabama legislature. Alabama Power has the power. Now, what's the effect of that? The effect of that is that when we get our light bills, we have the second highest light bill in the United States. Now, you can't make this make sense. Now, a state where we're the lowest five for household income,
Mm-hmm.
the lowest five for median household income, and for the power bill is the highest bill for most people that are on fixed income, without a doubt. It's the power bill. And the only correlation that we can make with that is that they give up money to politicians. And when it's time to make decisions, Alabama Power has the power and not the people. But people just they just vote with their
Mm-hmm.
parties and don't know that both of them are wedded with Alabama Power. And so then I become the bad guy for both, right? That's one part. On the other part, impact that lobbyists have on the industrial based complex and their relationship with Congress members.
Mm-hmm.
That I'll mention Alabama Power, but I won't mention the companies that do business with military that come on
Mm-hmm.
Capitol Hill to say, "Hey, I have this idea, and we just need money." And those two interests, General Colin Powell, rest his soul, was the only one that said we went for the wrong reason. Not Afghanistan, but we went to Iraq because we said that they had nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing they had was oil. It's China. That's the benefactor of oil that, and so it's special interest involvement in politics with regular voters just voting with party and not voting on what's in their best interest. And so me coming home had nothing to do with politics. It had to do with reconciling community. And how do we reconcile community? And I said, do that through church. And then you don't just do that with church if you do that with policy. That policy shapes the day lives of all of us. And if you don't shape policy, you can just pray, be saved, and just wait to go to heaven.
Yeah. And I will say, since your appearance and by you being back at home, you have been visible. I mean, you have been visible in places where I know people, example given my mother, she was like the little Jodie guy. And I'm like, you know Jodie? So I will say that you are, it's great to see people that are visible and that are concerned about things and they're out and moving and they're going in a lot of different places. So, and
Yeah.
that's something that I haven't seen because I always like to not forget home. And
Yeah.
just for my mother, born in 1953, to say the little Jody guy. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah. And
Yeah.
for people that are listening, even though we're from Pickens County, when you put our little towns on the map, we are a few miles apart. And I promise you all, this is not rehearsed. I have never in my life, and I will be 48 years old in June. I have never talked to Jody as much.
But the thing about there's a connection,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Like there's a
yes.
connection that we didn't need to talk, but like I said, no, we need to talk. Um, back to step back because you asked the question. I want to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
I fill that question space. Is that now when I was selected as a congressional fellow for the United States Army, 27, 28 individuals are selected every year for the Army's Congressional Fellowship Program out of the whole Army.
Wow.
And so after being the HR Officer of the Year, I was selected for the Army's Congressional Fellowship Program. And you get a master's degree in legislative affairs, and you also work in a congressman's office for a year before you perform in some capacity as a legislative liaison, which is also a lobbyist, but not a lobbyist because the Army
Mm-hmm.
doesn't lobby. You can't be an administration lobby, but it's the same kind of roles and function as a lobbyist in a way. We're lobbying on behalf of the United States Army. So we're
Right.
informing Congress. We're taking them on trips to go see whatever military installation because they appropriate money. But the point is the military has the largest budget for the federal government. Like the president just recently introduced a budget for 1.5 with the T trillion just for the military. And so it's the biggest budget. So when we talk about, money and priorities, I always go back to we don't have a money problem. We have a prioritization of resources problem. And if you don't invest money in places that lead to it leads to the people with money with regular people fighting each other because they don't have money. And now
Yeah.
we're fighting over $10. Now we've been in this space where we had no ambulances, not even long ago. You don't have to go back in your memory to get here. I'm talking budget. And so for our budget, we need to add $10 per tag, and people are arguing, flashing conflict over $10 when Alabama Power has exerted their power and our power bill is the second highest. We're not
Right.
mad at Alabama Power. We're mad at $10 with the commissioners trying to manage a budget with inflation that's continuing to do this. Now, I do think if you're going to pay taxes, we need to know. I say, show me, put it on paper. Show me what's on paper.
Yeah.
Show me what you're
Hmm.
spending the money on. But I'll never vote. I'll rather deal with giving somebody $10 than to have it on my conscience on whether we keep maintaining the ambulances and whether people live or die or not.
Right. Yeah.
So I was
And
responsible in part with the budget for the Army and present that budget to Capitol Hill, and then taking generals on Capitol Hill to explain why we need the money, but then also planning trips for Congress members to go to all over the world to do
hmm
oversight on how that money is being executed. That's what I learned in the Army as a congressional fellow.
wow. So I've spent some time like working with budgets. Like I said, the largest one that I was involved with was 1.2 million. But from working with accountants and CPAs, particularly in the nonprofit space, they always said follow the money.
Yeah.
I talked to a girl a few weeks ago, 34 years old. She hit 188th best interest. So I'm very passionate about that digital equity and access because it's hard for us to be something that we can't see.
Hmm.
And I'm enjoying speaking with you because just a few weeks ago, a little young guy by the name of Xavier Rice challenged me to say, don't forget home. You got a 17-year-old saying, don't forget home, but he also realizes the same thing that your mother saw many years ago. What are you coming back for?
Hmm.
So you've done what you had to do, and now you're in a different space and you're able to do more. So
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
like that, they just kind of resonate with me even more.
Yeah. Yeah. When we talk about, I mean, we talk about going home. This isn't a knock on anybody else to compel anybody else to come home.
Mm-hmm.
But when why, when people look up to me, I don't know. I mean, so when I'm in the military and I decide to retire, I just talked about giving up. I gave up.
Mm-hmm.
Lieutenant colonels in the Army, if you're in DC, you make about 180,000 a year.
Yeah.
Like you give up.
Yeah.
Then when you retire and you make your retirement pay, if you're a GS 14 or 15 with the federal government, that's also about 150, 140, 50, 60,000. So not only was I here retirement and I'm here with GS and I say, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm resigning from this job at the White House's National Security Council as the Human Capital Director and I'm going home.
Mm-hmm.
Now I didn't make this decision by myself because if it was a decision I would make, I would still be there. What happened is something that I was laying on the couch at the White House because we had to sleep at the White House on inauguration night,
Wow.
pre-inauguration. We had to stay there because security wouldn't let you come in. I couldn't get to work if I would have came in on inauguration day.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to sleep there. And then something says it's time to go home. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I said, well, can we wait? And I preached my first sermon on the cost of discipleship. But so then by the third day, I wake up and I go to the bathroom, and the next thing I know is I'm getting up off the floor. I pass out.
Wow.
I get up, I sit down, and I pass out again.
Mm-hmm.
I go to the emergency room, they run all these tests, and they say they can't find anything wrong. And I said, oh, I know what's wrong. It's time to go home. I
Wow.
went to my political appointee and I said, hey, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here, but I need to go home. And she said, you're right. She said, yeah. She said, anytime, and I had told them this before. If you want to check the pulse of America, you
Yeah.
gotta come to the South.
Yeah.
If the South isn't doing well, America's not doing well.
Yeah.
Period. Look at any era in American history. If you want to see where the conflict was at, see what was going on in the South. Any generation.
Wow.
See what's going on in the South,
Yeah.
and you can get the heartbeat and pulse of America. So then, because I've studied this stuff, because when I met John Lewis in 2019, he told me to start studying. So then I say, okay, 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 I'm going. But then I had to tell my kids I was leaving.
Yeah.
After I said I'm retiring because I'm not moving again, and then I got to leave, um, so then, but no, it's time. And so when I come home, it's on rebuilding community. So the first thing I
Yeah.
do is I go to the church organizations to figure out how they're structured and operated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an experienced preacher. I'm just a licensed and theologian, a trained theologian. So I go to see how these organizations are, how they organize, how they're structured, where's the influence, where's the structure
Mm-hmm.
at, and that's how I end up in the space where I'm coming back home and now I'm engaged in community. These are the issues. Then I got invited to do jail ministry.
Oh wow.
And in doing jail ministry, like you realize at some point that Alabama has the worst prisons in the United States. But I only learned that because I'm in there. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't a knock on what they're doing at the Pickens County Jail. This is based on the system, the way it's fashioned and designed.
Right.
So how and so that's what so then it becomes kind of like a hero story that you're at home, you leave away from home, and then you come back home again. And not only that, you gave up all of that
Yeah.
to come back home. And you can't, I guess you could buy a better story, but like you can't make up a better story if you want to highlight a story about something that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So coming back home, I don't critique anybody, but then I do say that people that don't want to invest back into where they're from. Like it's like being an alumni from a school, and that they
Yeah.
would have given you what they've given you,
Right.
and then you decide that based on what you've gained that you don't. Not people that are living on the margins, like people that are here, like people that are left that make
Yeah.
80, 90, whatever it is. Some people, and I'm talking campaign now. The disappointment that I have isn't from regular people. It's from people that you would have expected to help, not you, but people that are close to me. That you would
Mm-hmm.
expect that people that would help that are just radio silent. They don't live here. They don't give back to here.
Right.
And then like we were friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the ones. That's the hard part. Not the people that do what you expected for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Somebody sent me. This is the encouragement part. Somebody sent me a self-addressed stamp. Action speak a language. Somebody sent me a self-addressed stamp with a $10 bill in it, and and on it was a printout of this Bible verse that talks about it says, "Do the work, be strong, be courageous."
Mm-hmm.
With a $10 bill with self-addressed, they gave all they had.
Oh wow.
A $10 bill and a Bible verse that says, "Be strong, be courageous." But that's the stuff that keeps you going when otherwise it would just be every now and then it's a wink. Like it's a wink and it's a wink. Yeah. I'm sorry. I took us
No,
I took
no.
us on the side road. Mhm.
After high school, I went to basic training in July, got back home in November, and was able to start UAB in January 1997.
Mhm. Mhm.
Birmingham is the same way. But when you start coming further rural, West Alabama, or in other places in Alabama, in smaller cities, little towns, what happens is when we grow up, we go somewhere to try to make a living and do good for ourselves. And we don't come back to little bitty places. That's exactly what Xavier was saying a few weeks ago. A lot
Mhm.
of people don't know that. I mean, that's why I go home and I MC events. I do a
Mhm.
lot of different things. That's why I still help with our church ministry, like the media side,
Mhm.
as much as I can.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
home is very important to me. I understand exactly what you're saying. I don't
Mhm.
think sometimes people realize the sacrifice, but if we invested back in our roots, because honestly, we don't know where we're gonna end up at.
Mhm. Mhm.
So as we go into like our last little segment here, as we think about you, you wore that army uniform for 20 years.
Mhm.
How are you redefining yourself when the uniform comes off? Like,
Mhm.
is it harder to get people to follow you, or is it easier to lead without it?
Yeah. Um, Thank you for the question. I Part of the challenge that I had in the military, I just started, I started reading,
Mm-hmm.
started reading. And the more I read, the more I learned, the more that I outgrew the uniform.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm describing through this narrative,
Yeah.
is that I outgrew the uniform, not the importance of the uniform,
Right.
but for what I was being built to do.
Mm-hmm.
I had outgrew the uniform. I didn't like the fact that people treated me different because I was an officer.
Yeah.
And so for people don't, we should, the difference between being an officer and being enlisted is kind of like being a manager and being somebody that works for a manager. That's probably the best way to explain it.
Yeah.
So I was a manager of people, and in the army, everything's based on rank. So as an officer, people call you sir. If you're enlisted, everybody enlisted calls an officer sir or ma'am.
Right.
And I didn't want to be treated any different because I was an officer. And that goes all the way back to my roots. I didn't want people to treat me with more privilege because I was an officer.
Mm.
Even now, like when people say, I say, call me Jody. I mean, and so when I transition to take the uniform off, it's actually easier because I'm the most authentic version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not based on what people think you are, it's based on you being authentic, based on your gifts and your passion and your purpose.
Yeah.
So now I take the uniform off, and
Yeah.
so now I'm back here, and I don't just go to what we call the black church or what we call the white church.
Yeah.
Whatever these things are, I
Mm-hmm.
go to all of them. And sometimes I walk in and they look at me like I'm Jesus. So I go everywhere. So taking the uniform off allows me to be the most authentic version of myself. And now I can just love people and get to know people without them having an expectation to say a certain thing or to act a certain way because I'm an officer and they're enlisted.
Right. Yeah.
So taking it off kind of allowed me to be free. I mean, I said I was a veteran, but I don't walk around with guns saying that you want a fighter. We
Right.
don't want fighters. We want somebody that's a statesman,
Mm-hmm.
that's about diplomacy. If you want a
Right.
fighter, what should you expect if you want a fighter? You should expect a fight.
Yeah.
And you fight, somebody's gonna win and somebody's gonna lose.
Right.
But when you're a statesman, when you're fighting for a nation that says it's united, then you don't want a fighter. You want somebody
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna bridge the divide. And so taking the uniform off, you go back home and work on reconciling community. And I come home, I can really work on bringing people together with the focus on improving rural emergency care, but
Yeah.
then also the issues that are all throughout the West Alabama region and for Alabama.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said that when the uniform came off to a certain degree, there was a sense of relief, and you can be your most, even more so, authentic self. But what I've realized is that a lot of people don't realize there's a difference between authority, influence, and power. A
Mhm,
lot of us will be in a position and you're respected just because you're actually in that position. But do
mhm,
you have the influence? And
mhm,
I'm not talking about this word that we use kind of vaguely in 2026. Oh, I'm an
mhm,
influencer.
mhm,
But that's different when
mhm,
you actually have the influence to a certain degree. That's probably wrapped up with your gift, and
mhm,
that's what keeps your passion moving
mhm.
to the forefront. So a
Yeah,
lot of people don't understand being able to lead without a title, and it's not about the title. it's
yeah,
it's who
yeah,
you are.
yeah. This is the dichotomy. So one, I want to influence somebody to do good because it's right to do good.
Yeah.
I want to influence somebody because the alternative is doing bad. And so now those are abstract things and what's good and what's bad. I want somebody to
Yeah.
care about people because it's right to care about people. I
Yeah.
want people to love people because it's just right to love people. And I guess I'm on a love crusade. But the point is now the influencers that are in the social media space, my kid said it's brain rot. When you go to social media and whatever you get, it leads to nothing. It's like it leads to empty spaces in your brain. To whatever grows, it grows, and whatever grows is rotten and it's just a poof space. You spend a lot of time, you've invested your most valuable resource in a space that leads to nothing. And 95%, a large percent of what's on social media is just brain rot. And they call themselves influencers. Like you listen to these people, you listen to them talk. Am I am being critical because it's life or death. Like we really have a life or death crisis.
Yeah.
And their influence is to figure out who can talk the baddest, who can say that they're
Hmm.
gonna fight the hardest, not who's gonna
Yeah.
save the most lives.
Right. Yeah.
Like if you, I'm telling you, I don't care. I told the politicians that represent us, I don't care who names on it. If you
Yeah.
want to be famous,
Yeah.
develop a plan for rural emergency room care for the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
If you do that, your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids, you'll always be known for doing something that grew into something that you'll always be elevated because it has to
Yeah.
do with life. Now, if you want to fight to name the Gulf of America, the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to lead to nothing.
Yeah.
What purpose does that serve to help people?
Hmm.
I'm being critical of the legislative process and the agenda for the Alabama legislature. The passion comes from being a firefighter
Yeah.
and trying to save lives. The political antennas that leads to people being in a crisis with the hospital deserts.
Yeah. That's interesting. What I will say is that word influence led to other things that you made mention of in this space for 2026. But I'll give you an example here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's interesting that your children made mention of brain rot for them to be young enough but wise enough to actually understand what happens when we consume a lot of it. And the sad part of it is that many people don't realize is that our brains cannot process all this stuff that we're seeing. And that's why you see a lot of stuff going on now with screen times and then
Mm-hmm.
monitoring. I have to tell you something offline that I think is a really big joke. So as we go right into like looking at the future of work, from everything you've seen, where do you think the workforce system is failing people right now? As you think about the workforce system.
This kind of ties into going what you were just mentioning with AI and technology.
Mm-hmm.
The demand for actual workers, the workforce will one, I'll say it'll go back, but it'll go forward, and I'll
Yeah.
explain what I mean by that. So at the inauguration last in January 2025, Elon was there, Bezos was there, Zuckerberg was there, and Pachi was there. That's Google, that's Amazon, that's Facebook, and that's X, right? They're all there. They're all there with an interest. We talked about money and politics. They all
Yeah.
have an interest. And I didn't understand this when I saw Zuckerberg when they kept bringing him on the hill in 2018, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They want no change to social media policy, no change. Actually,
Yeah.
they want to turn it down. No regulations on social media policy.
Yeah.
They want access to land and water in your states. They don't want to pay taxes either. They want a tax break. And they need these really, really huge facilities to store data. Now, what those facilities don't require is workers. So if they say that they're investing 1.5 billion in some place, that's in warehouse and infrastructure and not in people. So um so that so that workforce so now that's going forward. Now I'm gonna go backwards real quick. If we're talking, we call this Sankofa, the Ghanaian proverb to go back and get it.
Okay.
Now we're seamstress, pipe fitters, mechanics, all of those service oriented industry, those things that require hands to physically do, the value of those things are going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
I said if I had the time to gift, I would start planting now. I would start regular farms. what I would recommend for anybody that would want to get into a space that's an investment because what we're teaching society is that it's the clickbait 3 second stuff that leads to nothing. Or either I would be a therapist, nurse. These so AI doesn't replace those kinds of jobs.
Yeah.
Actually, it increases the need for those kinds of jobs.
Right.
But now, manufacturing, like it was in the 80s and 90s,
Hmm.
the same people that were arguing that these jobs are in China are the same ones that are investing millions and billions of dollars into presidential campaigns to
Right.
keep to keep their businesses. Everything that Bezos sells on Amazon comes from China, and he's millions invested into the presidential inauguration campaign. You can't
Yeah.
even make this make. We go back to where I was. You can't make this make sense. And so
Hmm.
the point though is that now this job market is gonna be like a divide
Yeah.
where you're not gonna need a whole lot of people to do certain jobs, and then what becomes roaring back are jobs that are these physical labor jobs, but based on us being a tech society that people just don't
Yeah.
want to do them.
Right. Yeah. And I will say from kind of being directly impacted with that because I was a member of Google Women Tech Makers
Oh wow.
when new administration came in,
Mm-hmm.
that organization exists. It is now non-existent. We
Mm-hmm.
were now merged under a new program called Technovation, but Google ended that program. Prior to that, I was also in Google's Tech Equity Collective. Tech Equity Collective was a group of technology folks,
Mm-hmm.
black minorities gathering, coming together. Google also ended that. So that would be very similar to like an employee resource group. So a few years ago, I was able to go to Google I/O, which is input and output. I went to the Google headquarters in the Silicon Valley, and here I am, a little girl from the sticks, and
Yeah.
I'm out here at the
Yeah.
Silicon Valley,
Wow.
and was able to see the differences. Like when I walked into that room, meaning we were outside and no one else in that space looked like me. The
Yeah.
only people that looked like me were pretty much the ones in that small group. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even 100 of us. So as we think about workforce and spaces, what you made mention of being able to use our hands. When we grew up in Pickens County, we had the Ladow Center. I
Mm-hmm.
was in advanced classes, and for some reason, I challenged the status quo. I was like, I want to take advanced classes and technical classes. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of students weren't able to do that. So I took carpentry. I was bused from Aliceville to Ladow, and I
Mm-hmm.
actually took carpentry. But if I had to forecast a lot of the students that went to Ladow, I could start naming them right now. What
Mm-hmm.
they studied at Ladow, they are actually in those career fields right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is actually disappearing from our workforce system. But what really jumps out, you talked about using your hands on.
Mm-hmm.
It is a dire need across the state of Alabama, which is why we probably have Go Build Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I had my first official workforce job back in 2009
Mm-hmm.
when I actually worked in a prison. I worked in JF Ingram Technical Institution. We were in Columbiana inside Alabama Therapeutic Education Facility. So
Mm-hmm.
those guys and girls there were en route to work release. They were coming from prison. It was still a
Mm-hmm.
correctional setting, and they got to learn a skill or a trade, but they also had a workforce development component. So
Mm-hmm.
that was my first official 2009. How do we get, and it's 2026.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm able to actually host a podcast and talk about the future of work because I've seen it. I've been a part of it, and I've felt the effects of it, particularly if we look at small places like rural Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
some of the places that we did have, how people had gainful employment and they're disappearing, and
Mm-hmm.
work is becoming more centralized into larger
Mm-hmm.
pockets. That
Mm-hmm.
could be room for another conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of unpacking a little of that. So as
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
move into our last, what you want to add there?
Yeah. So I do want to tap the horn for
Yeah.
the Pickens County Career and Technical Center that's in
Yep.
Carrollton.
Okay.
the transition from what was at Liddell and a
Mm-hmm.
vision that former Superintendent Chapman had was the Career and Tech Center that replaced was Carrollton High School.
Mm-hmm.
They do an excellent job specific to the teacher cadet program and nursing program. So there are two programs that's a value. I mean, I call these things a positive investment. So
Yeah.
now there are things that we invest in, as I say things, there are programs that we invest in as a state. I call them net negative investments.
Mm-hmm.
They're net negative. So now while some people may make money off of it, the ultimate sum of that is negative.
Yep.
Um, but uh, but what they're doing at the Career and Tech Center is a model that's not in every county.
Yeah.
But those kids are doing is they're going from one place, but their direct line to job employment when they graduate for a demanding space. Are teachers going to ever go away? I don't think that AI is going to replace teachers.
Right.
They'll supplement and help teachers, but you'll
Mm-hmm.
never fully go to AI. Well, I don't think that we will anytime soon. And
Yeah.
then with nurses too, like you're not going to replace nurses with robots,
Yeah.
right? But now if you're in manufacturing cars, look out.
Yeah.
If you're in the space of even, I mean, we're already doing this now. Like when you call people, they'll say, "Let me see if this person's available," and
Yep.
like
Yep.
it shifts to the AI space to like you got your own secretary on your phone. You don't need to pay
Mm-hmm.
somebody to do that.
Yep.
So and so one of my passions and what one of my focuses is to like make sure or work with counties potentially at the state level to make sure that we're training our students to demanding jobs that's 2030 looking 2030. This is vision. This is like where leaders need vision at
Yeah.
to make sure we're planning for that now while also understanding that we have a demographic of people in rural that the job market has gone. And how do we still take care of our aging population while moving? It's a society in transition, is my point. Where we need to make sure that the job market is matched up, and the Career and Tech Center is doing a job with that with those two programs specifically. I don't think we're ever going to get away from truck drivers.
Yeah.
I don't.
No.
Now, law politicians can make laws to where people cannot need drivers in vehicles. I don't think that's a good idea. But
Mm-hmm.
but
Right.
that's my
Right.
point. Like you just gotta make sure that based on where the job market is going, make sure that that's nested in what we're teaching kids. That's beyond.
Yeah. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that that was actually called the official Orlando Magic. I learned that
I
from
don't even know
somebody.
what it is.
Yeah, it is. It's a dance that they love. Some people call it a TikTok dance. But what I will say, and I appreciate you for pausing to bring that back to the surface with the Pickens County, Career and Technical Center, College and Career Readiness Center. A student a few weeks ago, he talked about that. But in particular, what's happening in Pickens County is something that we have not been able to duplicate here in a larger city. And I visited other places, and they actually had to facilitate that with only charter schools. So
Mm-hmm.
to see a local public school system, do that with a college, to me is phenomenal. But let's go back to our roots. And by Pickens County being there, the seat is Carrollton, the county seat. So we have Belleville State Community College, and that used to be Brewer State. So I'm gonna go back to something that I saw on your social media feed, and that was a picture of you and Miss Brown. So Miss Brown was a teacher at Carrollton High School, and this is how we have generations that touch you, your mom, your cousin. Miss Brown, when I was a student at Carrollton High School, because I took a class called Office Procedures, little did I know some of the things that she taught me. I'm not kidding, it was going to translate into me with a MOS in the Army of knowing personnel management. In that class, I learned about taxes, a checkbook, how to balance it, set up a bank account. Miss Brown taught so much in that class. Now, guess what else? Because Carrollton had Belleville Community
Mm-hmm.
College, Miss Brown also taught my mother. So not
Wow.
only was I a student in her class, she also taught my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And that translated into me, and I would say my work in the at the Birmingham Education Foundation, where I was able to serve as the office manager. So I
Mhm.
had the military, I had the high school, and then for you to show up on a picture with Miss Brown at a celebration, it and this was just recent. So that speaks volumes for our roots, relationships, and
Yeah.
how you make people actually feel and how we can care for one another.
Yeah.
So thank you for
Our
providing.
teachers, our teachers, so if I mean I'm a advocate, I'm a strong advocate for I mean I'm a strong advocate for people. But like for teachers, I mean
Hmm.
I'm a out it's just I'm trying to figure out the words to describe how passionate I am for advocating for teachers.
Yeah,
Because if it weren't for teachers, like I talk about where how I got to where I'm at,
yeah,
like teachers just didn't give up. I saw Miss Williams, Miss Ware was Miss Williams when she saw
hmm,
me, she started crying.
yeah,
She said, I never would have thought that you would have. I'm just so proud
yeah,
because of where you were at.
yeah,
Like I got in trouble so much because my dad had passed away, and I just was waiting on my dad to come home. And like,
yeah,
and I'm in kindergarten now, and Miss she just cried. But like the point though is the people that we should value the most
yeah,
in our society, it's the teacher.
right.
Because without the it's a disgrace and a shame that a teacher would have to get a second job. It's a shame that you would have a degree, that you would teach, you would be in a profession where you're teaching kids how to become successful citizens. That we would in turn say that you're valued on a level that's here, but you're doing the most to help us to move as a society into a new generation with new learners and a new demographic. Miss Brown taught three generations of a citizens.
Yeah,
My mom, me, and she was just retired last year, and I've been I've been out of school for 20 years.
yeah,
Generation. And I just for whatever it is, there's certain people that I'll fight and that I'll die. I mean I'll die for anybody, but for teachers,
yeah,
not because I ain't afraid to die. But like for teachers,
yeah.
so I saw Miss one of my teachers, Miss Clay, today in at T-Mobile in Northport. I don't know how we end up in the same place, but
Hmm.
it's just something that for me, that if you say I love people, I turn my love meter all the way up when I see a teacher.
Yeah,
I turn it all the way up. Not something that's ingenuous because that's my affection for people that are in the education space. I'm sorry, I went.
no, no, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. You are, you are helping our audience. I hope that I am helping them add some other bits and pieces there. So we've made mention of Carrollton. I know my senior class, when I tell people my senior class had 32 people, they think that they think I'm meaning 32 people just in one classroom. I was like, no. Carrollton was a 1A school.
Yeah.
It was 32 of us. I don't
Hmm.
know. So I finished school in 96. So you must have finished in 98, I would
Hmm.
say.
Yeah.
98. Were you
I
in
tell that same
99?
story.
Yeah. Third.
I tell
I
the
mean,
same story with the same numbers, 30.
yeah.
I tell the same story. I'm serious.
Okay. So
I
y'all
tell the
had two
same
less.
story.
Y'all had 30.
Yeah. I tell the same story. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
30 people in my graduating class.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and that's amazing. So when you think about as we go into the last phase of looking at your purpose and direction, everything you've experienced from the military to the White House, what problems or what did you see that made you decide to step into your next phase of leadership right now?
Uh, I kind of touched this. My my conscience, I couldn't rest. I mean, I could sleep, but I couldn't rest knowing that the issues and concerns that are in Pickens. Now, that's again, I said it before. Um, I wouldn't recommend for anybody just to come if they're not called to come. It's like having a teacher, but you know they're not that they're just there for money.
Right.
Like don't do it if you ain't called to do it. This is not this place that you know, by the way, you need a certain skill set to be able to come and to be successful in anyway. But you can't just read a book and grow it. It has to be something that's born in you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's it's just knowing that I told the ladies at the tax revenue office, I'm a firefighter and a justice warrior. I'm just a firefighter. Not for fires, but for people to save lives. And I'm a justice warrior, like not because I want to. Nobody wants to be in a space of holding people accountable
Right.
and ensuring that there's justice. But but my conscience, like people will come up and just tell me stories about an injustice. I'm like, I don't need to add to what I already got today. Like, do I
Yeah.
look like do I got like real work for justice on my shirt? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
but it's just a gravitational space.
Mm-hmm.
And now in order to have that passion for that, you have to go back to all of that we talked about before.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And now and I just have a passion for it. Somebody called me. This lady sent me a message and she said, I think she said I want to she said some I was talking to somebody about my dad's case and they told me to reach out to you because I don't think that they looked at all the evidence for his case. And I didn't even ask who told her to call, who told her I didn't even know this. I don't know. I mean, I still don't know. And
Right.
but somebody said you need a doctor,
Yeah.
and now the doctor that you need is this kind of doctor.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a foot pain, you don't want a dentist,
Right.
right? If you have, you get the point. So, like for
Yeah.
whatever issue she was having, somebody said talk to Jodie,
Yeah.
and I just sit there like, God, you must have me in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Even though my kids, my middle kids aren't here, I don't want to. People say you love being here. I'm like, no, I want to be with my kids.
Right.
But when God says go, it's like, okay, well, how's it gonna work out? I said, well, well, what about the money? What about all of these reasons why I give
Mm-hmm.
a? And it was like, no, 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 no. What you need to focus on is being obedient to go, and the
Yes.
rest of the part will just work his way out.
It's
You won't minimum wage when you started this.
right.
Like what is that going to prevent you from doing what I've called for you to do?
Yeah.
Like no.
Yeah.
So it's just that's I call it the small still voice that says and when I know it because I get these winks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
get these winks. Yeah.
it's good to know that you actually listen to that voice and then it actually comes to you. So I know we've discussed a lot. Is there anything else that you think you want our audience to hear or know before we let people know how they can learn more about you and follow the
And
work that you're doing in the community? Is there
yeah.
anything else that you think the Forte Effect missed, or one other tidbit you need to answer, or do you
Yeah.
feel president accounted for?
Yeah. So I think if you want to, we preachers do things in threes, but I'll do two and I'll be quick. I promise I will be. Well, I mean,
Okay.
I try to. So one, if you want to learn more about my campaign for state senate, it's electjodyminor.com. I'm on Facebook,
Okay.
elect Jody Minor. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram, and we have I think I mentioned www.electjodyminor.com.
Okay.
Campaigns are expensive. We don't have a lot of money, so donations are helpful.
Yeah.
That's one thing. So I said it's gonna be quick. That's one. Two, I think that it's really, really important for any listener to understand that we're a society in transition.
Yeah.
That our lives are constantly in a state of being in transition, but we're a society in transition. And when societies are in transition, you get what my Bible says is like birth pains. And anytime that society is in transition and a new one's about to be birthed, you get these birth pains. And so the point though, now if we know that that's what's gonna, and so I'll share that that China are if China really wanted to disrupt the market, all they have to do is stop sending goods and supplies to the United States. Because if you look at everything you purchase, is all made in China.
Right. Yeah.
That China already is at the plate, knocking home runs over the fence in terms of being a global superpower. They're not coming anywhere. They're already here. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't recognize that and think that we're just who we are and we're gonna be American, it's gonna be like Mike Tyson trying to fight Jake Paul in the ring, showing off his buttocks in an interview.
Wow.
So those are the two things I said I would be quick. Those are the two things that I would leave us with, that we're a society in transition and we need to take that seriously and what that means for the United States and our status as a world superpower. I'm sorry, we're $39 trillion in debt. We're not broke, we broke. 39
Wow.
trillion in debt. And so then if you ask the question who's responsible, guess what our politicians will say?
Mm. Yeah.
And all the
People.
money is in the bank accounts in stock accounts of millionaires and billionaires.
Wow.
So those are the two things that I'll leave you with. And I'm just thankful for your time and for your advocacy and for you using your space in a constructive way and not in a way that just leads to nothing. I mean, we won't get a lot of I don't know what kind of views we'll get here, but I promise you, once you plant and once you water stuff that's rich,
Hmm.
you don't got to worry about whether it's gonna grow or not. All you got to figure out, you got to sit back and wait on when.
Right.
Yeah, you just can sit
Yeah.
back and wait on the harvest because it's gonna grow.
Right. So
Yes.
that's what the Forte effect means to you. I don't have to ask you that. Looks like you already said. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your time and for all the efforts that you are trying to lead and things that you're doing in the community. I just want to go back to my mother for her to say that Jodie guy. I'm like, wow, she's tapping into something. Like, what's going
Wow.
on here? Like, that
Wow.
really resonated with me, and I've learned a lot. I know that our audience will learn a lot, and we just want to make sure that they know that they can go back if they want to see more of what you're doing and what you have going on and what you're trying to rebuild in the community. Or sometimes it means building. They can go to electjodieminor.com. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
All right.
That's
Well,
right.
that sounds great. So, guess what? Hey, this has been great. And as we've explored some more leadership in Alabama and what that power looks like, Capitol Hill, the White House, the military, coming from by way of Carrollton, Alabama, Big Creek specifically. Thank you so much, Jodie. Hey, I'm Forte, and I'm your host for the Forte Effect. And remember, reinvention is not starting over, it is simply moving forward.